The Jim Toth Show on 680 CJOB.
Welcome back to the program. Marion Willis did get a hold of us from St. Boniface Street Links. We'll talk to her in their second hour now, as we had a little bit of trouble connecting with her. She was in a meeting, so we appreciate her insight, and we'll get to that in a little bit later. A major bridge collapse in Baltimore earlier this morning after it was hit by a cargo ship sending vehicles into the water. Rescuers are now searching for any possible survivors. Global's Joel Sinek is near the scene in Baltimore.
Now, the crash happened in the overnight hours on Tuesday. It was caught on camera. You can see the large vessel strike one of the bridge's supports, causing it to crumble into the river. At least 2 people were pulled from the water, 1 in serious condition, according to officials. Now the search continues for more potential survivors. However, time seems to be running out. A Baltimore Fire Department spokesperson describing the collapse as a developing mass casualty event. The investigation into what happened is also ongoing. A number of agencies are on scene, including the FBI, who say there's no information at this point that suggests the incident has ties to terrorism. Joel Sinek, Global News, Baltimore, Maryland.
Thank you, Joel. And we now bring in Dr. Muntasir Billah, Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Calgary. Thank you for joining me, Dr. Billah. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
When you first saw this, what were your initial thoughts?
When I first saw this, it is too early exactly to tell exactly what happened, but bridge collapse due to this vessel impact are nothing new. But it was very shocking news when I saw this morning. So my prayers goes to the families and the people who are missing and suffered losses. So it is definitely a tough time for us as structural engineers to swallow this kind of collapse. But I hope the investigators will surely find out that, what exactly happened over there.
Yeah, indeed. And we echo those sentiments that you had for all those involved and their families as well. The shocking part to me was how the whole bridge came down just from that one impact. Should I not be surprised by that from what you know of it?
It is surprising, but if we think of the size of the vessel and how it hit, if we look at the location, if you look from the videos or the pictures that is now surfing online, if you see that the bridge, the ship hit right at the pier location, which is a critical point of this bridge, right? And when I did some background calculation after seeing this news, I found that, this is not a small vessel ship. It's like a huge one, which has a deadweight tonnage of around 100,000 to 120,000 tons, which is huge, along with all the dead weights it was carrying. So considering that if it is operating at a slow speed, at that speed, if we calculate the force according to our Canadian Highway Bridge Design Code, the vessel hit the bridge, it is around 80 to 120 meganewton, which is huge. And the bridge was built in 1977, right? And if you think the size of the vessels that it was designed for during that time may not exist any longer at this time. So now our vessels are larger, they are carrying more and more weight. So the impact force that was on the bridge, that was huge. And the configuration of the bridge was like that. It was kind of a cantilever truss and steel arch bridge. And when you hit this critical point, it is likely to fail.
And that was, I was going to question, maybe delve into that just a little bit more from what you know of the structure. Had that ship and the magnitude and the size of it was well explained by you, but had it hit a different part of the bridge or maybe not one of that structural part that it hit, do you think the whole bridge would have come down like that, or was it just specifically because it hit one of those sections where it did come down?
Yeah, the bridge did hit one of the critical points of the bridge, which is the bridge pier, and it was a continuous bridge. And once you hit that point, it has a domino effect, right? So it passes the forces or energy to the next span, and that resulted in the collapse of the whole bridge. What would happen if it hit another location? It is difficult to answer without knowing the details of the bridge or without doing any further analysis. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I can understand that if it hit that critical part of the pier like it did. And I was wondering if it had hit like just part of the bridge that wasn't connected to the pier, what would happen. I would understand how that's tough to say, but maybe just estimating if it would have hit the middle part of a bridge as opposed to a pier, maybe the whole thing or parts of it are still up, or is that too difficult to detect?
Maybe part of it would wherever it hit, it might just collapse that span, then other would still remain intact. But since it hit on the critical part, it resulted in the collapse of the whole structure. Yeah.
And you mentioned it was built in 1977. How would they build that? And do those piers go right into the ground, deep under the water?
Yes, if you look at this bridge, when it was built, it was one of the largest continuous truss bridge in the world. So that is a testament of the engineering ingenuity at that time. And I don't know the details of this foundation of these things, but I can presume that, the foundations are very deep because it's on a river and it's a very long span bridge. So definitely the foundations are deep into the ground. But it is not about the foundation because it is where the vessel hit the bridge and the pier. And if you look at the pier from the pictures or videos that I can see, they were not very huge. They were quite slender, and the bridge was performing well, and it was supporting the lightweight truss bridge on there. And maybe the time it was designed, and I believe it was definitely designed considering the vessel impact or ship impact thing, but the weight of the vessels might be much less when it was designed. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that explains a lot as well. What is the bridge made of? Do you know? And be it built in 1977, it's still a good bridge at this point?
I don't have the bridge inspection report and other things on hand, but it was performing well. And I read in the report that some rehab work was going on the bridge, and by looking at the picture and everything, it looks fine. Like 1977 is just 50 years old bridge, right? So typically we design bridges for a service life of 75 to 100 years. So this is not uncommon, but what is uncommon is like the hitting the vessel, the bridge pier, because in our design codes there is certain, but these are very low probability events, right? So this can happen once in every 1,000 years or something like that. But nowadays we see that these things are happening more and more. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. And what is the structure now? Obviously the forefront is finding the 7 people that are missing and hoping everybody's okay, and especially on the ship. That's at the forefront for sure. But how would you go about rebuilding this thing now that it's come down, or do you need to know how much damage is done overall before you can estimate that?
Yeah, definitely it has to be investigated properly, and I'm sure there will be a lot of studies, a lot of investigation going on this bridge, and it will be a topic of research and study for many more years to come. But yeah, without looking into the investigation report or doing in-depth study, it is difficult to say at this moment that what type of damage the other parts incurred and how this bridge is going to be replaced, because now you can see that now most of the truss span that the bridge has completely collapsed and fallen into the bridge. So it is kind of a rebuilding process, not repairing. Yeah.
Yeah, and clearly you don't build a bridge for a ship of this magnitude to run into it, right? Like I think it was built, and this is clearly something went awry with the ship in order for this to happen. Has this happened before?
You mean like a ship hitting bridges?
Yeah, to this magnitude where the structure, the entire structure came down.
Entire structure that I remember there was another similar type of bridge in the U.S. that also collapsed due to this ship quite a few years ago, but not very recently. But I also read in the news like last week or the week before, similar incident happened in China as well, like a vessel hit the bridge and the bridge collapsed. So this is nothing uncommon, because sometimes, you may lose the control of the vessel, or the wave is too high, or the river the current is very strong, and things can go wrong and this can happen, right?
Yeah. Doctor, this has been fascinating. I really appreciate your insight on this, and especially because it happened this morning, and I know there's not a lot of information out on it, but it's been very insightful on the bridge itself and what you know of it. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Muntasir Billah, Assistant Professor in the Department of Civil Engineering at the University of Calgary. I mean, that's fascinating, and we'll continue to cover this, and hopefully the 7 people they're searching for are safe, and we wish their families all the best, too. Just a real tragedy to wake up to and watch, and we'll continue to cover it as we go through and give you the information as we find it throughout the afternoon. 1:30 News is next, and then what do you mean you can be fined for being uninsured? We'll tell you about that on the Jim Toth Show on 680 CJOB.